80% of Americans are suffering from some kind of chronic inflammation. Why do you think that we achieve such a big high number?
Welcome to today's episode of the Beljanski Cancer Talk Show. In today's episode titled Inflammation, the Root Cause of Multiple Diseases, I am honored to welcome back Sylvie Beljanski. Sylvie dives into the critical connection between chronic inflammation and its role in triggering a range of serious health conditions, including cancer and other autoimmune disorders. Her talk will highlight the Beljanski Foundation's extensive research into the specific plant extracts, showcasing studies that demonstrate their potent anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and anti-cancer properties. Sylvie will not only shed light on these mechanisms through which these natural compounds exert their beneficial effects, but will also offer practical advice on incorporating them into daily health practices. Let's dive in. Sylvie, it's so good to have you back on the show. Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself for the ones that don't know you yet, and give them a little intro of how you got here in the first place. Welcome back.
Ooh, okay, a loaded question. My name is Sylvie Beljanski. I am the president of the Beljanski Foundation, the 501c3 located in New York City that was founded in 97, already a lot of time. Our mission is to fund cancer research with natural compounds. And so far, we have been working with a number of natural compounds that have been perfected by my late dad. Was a PhD in molecular biology and at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, France. And he left a legacy of very interesting compounds. And we continue to work with them and to fund research with academic institutions here in the States based on those compounds. And they continue to deliver very exciting research and peer-reviewed papers. So that's what we do at the Beljanski Foundation, is to communicate about this research.
That's
And
amazing.
how I got there, that's a long story. But to put it short, my father was persecuted in France for his discoveries. I was a lawyer and I was so shocked by the unfairness of what happened that I decided to change entirely my life and dedicate the rest of my life to carry on with this research because I could not bear the idea that all this knowledge would be destroyed by a stupid police.
I love that. And to start out with this first question, research shows that 60% of adults have chronic diseases. What is the common link between all those diseases that someone has?
Very simple to put it in a nutshell. Same cause, different expressions of the disease. But it is the same disease that expresses itself differently and goes to different organs. Basically, if you want to address the disease by getting to the cause of it, not just talking about masking the pain and the symptoms and just ignoring the cause, you will find out by digging down that the cause of all those diseases is chronic inflammation. You can think that about 80% of Americans have a number of symptoms that look like all different, that go range from high body fat percentage, polycystic ovarian syndrome, imbalance of the gut, people who are diabetic, pre-diabetics, all that in fact are symptoms which are linked to chronic inflammation and result from some kind of high blood glucose in the level of glucose in the blood, and all of them. Acute, you have to make the difference between acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is part of the healthy healing process after an injury. For example, if you have a virus that enters your body, or if you get injured, your immune system will send out the first responders. And the first responders, they come with a kind of bazooka, which is an inflammatory response, and is going to trap the germs, the toxins, and start the healing. For example, the body will identify the virus, and then it will start with fever, sweat, everything until you get better. And if you cut yourself, for example, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be pain, heat, redness, swelling until it heals. On the other hand, chronic inflammation is when the body keeps sending its first responders and there is no enemy. There is nobody to fight. So it's fighting its own tissues. For example, for rheumatoid arthritis, the body is sending inflammatory cells that keep attacking the joint tissues because there is nothing else. So at the end, this inflammation is going to damage the joints because there is nothing else to damage. Acute inflammation is supposed to be a short-term process, a few days, and you get better. Chronic inflammation, on the other hand, can brew for very long. We are speaking here in years, 4 to 5 years generally, before you get a diagnosis of some specific disease. And any organ can develop an autoimmune disease. There are about 80 different kinds of autoimmune disease which are officially known to doctors. And it is fair to say that how is your body going to decide which organ is going to be affected? It depends 1/3 your genetics, 1/3 epigenetics, which is the environment, and 1/3 your lifestyle. Example of genetics. You are prone to some kind of food sensitivity. That's your part of your DNA. You react to something, to shellfish, for example. That's where you are. Example of environment. The microplastic that we eat. Do you know that there is 8 million tons of plastic dumped in the oceans every year, and they contaminate the water, all the marine life, the fishes, and the sea salt. Sea salt. Who knew?
Wow.
But of course, when you think of it, it's logic. So just by what kind of salt you are going to get, and dietitians recommend Himalayan salt for that reason, compared to sea salt, that's the reason. Example of lifestyle, of course, fatty tissues are known to be filled with pro-inflammatory proteins. So as obese people have a greater risk at developing first inflammation and then eventually colorectal cancer. That's a very well known. So that's
Quick
a short story about inflammation and how it can actually get everywhere, affect all of us, and express itself in different manners.
And I want to ask a dumb question here, just for the people that might not know. What really is inflammation? You went to the science, but what is actually happening? You went to the immune system. Is your blood vessels getting thicker? Let's say I was having inflammation in my hand. What is actually happening? Is my hand getting bigger? Is my blood like what is actually happening when it comes down to inflammation?
Your body is responding to something. Maybe you hurt yourself or you went too much at the gym and the muscle has been a little bit torn or something, some kind of injury. And the body is starting an inflammatory process to destroy what has been created by the injury. If it's a muscle, it's going to send a number of cytokines, of proteins that are going to actually recognize what your muscle has leaked. So, for example, the phage are going to eat all that, and then you are going to eliminate with the blood the
So
bad
it's,
things.
it's almost like the let's just say the muscle in my hand. We'll use this. The muscle in my hand. Let's say that was what was injured. The muscle will start to expand and get bigger. Where those.
The swelling is part of protecting actually
Oh,
the tissues. It's little cushion of water that we allow, don't touch me anymore. I've been injured. Don't touch me anymore. So it creates an edema as a kind of protection. And under the edema, it's doing the healing process where it is sending some molecules that are going to eat up what has been created as a result of the injury.
And then when it comes to chronic inflammation, that could happen all over the body in certain organs. So the similar thing would happen where it would start to get a little bit, expand a little bit more, and then those immune system would be potentially attacking something inside with that inflammation response. Is that right?
Yeah, so the difference with chronic inflammation is that there is no real injury. So the first responders, instead of attacking the result of an injury or a virus, will attack itself, attack the body. It is fair to say that the body attack itself when it should not. Actually, that's a problem of chronic inflammation.
And that goes perfectly with my next question. The link between the autoimmune diseases and cancer is widely researched. Studies show that there are over 50 common autoimmune conditions where they link with a risk of cancer. What is the link between autoimmune disease and cancer? I would love to talk about that.
Yes, for years, autoimmunity and cancer have been considered as the two separate fields of research with little in common. But actually, the new research is showing it is the two sides of the same problem. As I was telling you, autoimmune disease, the body attack itself when it shouldn't. And in cancer, the body doesn't attack itself when it should recognize the cancerous cells and get rid of them. And it doesn't. The body allows those abnormal cells to grow. It's a vicious cycle, and the immune system, when it is normally functional, is able to recognize cancer cells because our body create every day some abnormal cells and get rid of them. And sometimes the immune system doesn't do its work. It doesn't get rid of the abnormal cells. It allows them to grow, and that's when cancer happens. So that's the relationship. And both are a possible outcome of chronic inflammation, because chronic inflammation reinforces the disability of the immune system, and the disability of the immune system reinforces the opportunity for abnormal cells to continue to grow. So they are the same thing. They work together, and there are a lot of people who start with some kind of chronic inflammation and end up developing cancer. And the treatments themselves for cancer are notoriously bad for the immune system. For example, chemotherapy affects the lining of the gut, destroys everything on its way, including the lining of the gut, and therefore the microbiome is destroyed. And without the proper microbiome, you destroy also the ability to create the blood cells, which are at the core of our immune system. Then you create new imbalances, and you diminish the ability to create a healthy equilibrium and to get better, actually. And on the other hand, the treatments for autoimmune condition work generally by using autoimmune suppressive agents. So you see a temporary improvement, but on the long term, the body is losing its ability to recognize abnormal cells, and then it allows them to grow again, leading to cancer. For example, it is well known that cancer is a third most common cause of death in renal transplant recipients, because in order to make a transplant, you have to destroy the immune system, and then you allow cancer to grow, unfortunately. So there is always a considerable risk at manipulating the immune system. And we have seen recently with COVID the effect of some vaccines, that people are not reacting well to vaccines, their immune system being in shock as a result of vaccination. Then they develop what is called turbo cancer, which is a word that was not used before mass vaccination. but really explains that huge cancers that grow very fast because immune system is not where it should be.
And how would someone know if they have chronic inflammation? What are the symptoms they would experience, or how would you know if it's happening inside of your body? How would you know that it's happening at all?
Oh, there are a lot of symptoms that start mostly with pain, and for example, for the rheumatoid arthritis, it's the joints of the knee are attacked. So, what is causing that is the chronic inflammation.
Got you. That makes sense. What are the current treatments for autoimmune diseases, and how are they doing?
The treatments for the past 3 decades have worked on lowering the body's immunity, natural immunity, so that reduce the symptoms, but they do not really treat the cause. And the patient has to take the drug for a very long time and sometimes for life, because once you have manipulated the immune system, it's very difficult to go back to a normal homeostasis, a normally functioning immune system. There is some hope, some good results that have come with stem cell therapy lately. It starts with the idea, the hypothesis that cancer is an autoimmune disease. So they take some stem cells from the bone marrow and then they completely destroy the bone marrow, which they call that conditioning, but it's a complete destruction with a very aggressive chemotherapy, actually. And then they give back the bone marrow stem cells with the hope to reboot the immune system. And they do that for multiple sclerosis. And they have had, I have to say, some good results, but it's obviously a very heavy treatment and only used as a last resort and not for everybody.
Question for that. The reason why replacing the bone marrow, that's where the immune system cells are created, is in the bone marrow, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And so replacing them would basically have a new immune system cells that would basically work a little bit better when you talk about
Yes,
reboot the immune
exactly,
system, right?
exactly. Say is to save a few stem cells, destroy everything, and try to replant the stem cells, hoping that they will start all over again. Sometimes it works. It has worked,
Mhm.
but obviously it's not for everybody. I
Gotcha.
would
Okay.
say compared to those extremely heavy treatments, it is really worth to look into some good, natural, non-toxic approach that are worth being considered, and make some changes also in the lifestyle to make the most of an approach.
There was so much love at the conference. It was so easy to feel.
I met Sylvie last fall at the first annual Beljanski conference, which I love.
What I love about this conference so far is just the energy and the positivity.
Would you attend the next one?
The next conference?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Would you recommend it?
Absolutely.
Great.
I brought 2 friends to this one.
I have had an incredible experience at this conference. As a breast cancer survivor myself, I found the information incredibly helpful, not just for healing, but also for preventing. Highly recommend.
It's amazing. I'm a healthcare coach, and the information that I've been able to receive here is going to change so many people's lives, to be able to have the resources, references, connections, support. I'm so grateful that I came.
And 2025 is going to be bigger, better, and even more impactful, and I hope to see you there.
Cool. Yeah. And on that topic, based on the research, is there a natural approach that they could do better than conventional therapies to lower the risk of chronic inflammation diseases?
Actually, yes, and thank you for asking. I would love to share with you some things that we have done with some plant extract that were perfected by my father. And share, let's see, yes, here is my dad, Beljanski, 1923, 1998. This is a picture that was probably taken in the 60s at the Pasteur Institute. And he was one of the first environmentalists ever. He looked how the environment affects our DNA, can make us sick. And he looked also in nature for natural solutions. And he found two plants and make extracts out of them. And he identified every time which was the active molecule that have anti-cancer effect, and also are not touching healthy cells. That was really, really important to my dad. No toxicity to healthy cells. He tested both of his extracts on different kind of cancer cells. And I am telling you that because now I think you understand the relationship between cancer and chronic inflammation. So we are going to get back to inflammation. But let me first share with you those figures on cancer. So my father had the idea that those plant extracts would recognize cancerous cells, make the difference between healthy cells, cancerous cells, and target cancerous cells wherever they are located. And you have here human liver, thyroid carcinoma, meaning cancer of the thyroid. Here, breast cancer cells. And you can see that here we are in vitro, that the Pereira in blue, the Rauwolfia in green, are inhibiting the development of those cancerous cells every time in a matter of hours. The more here you have the quantities in nanogram per milliliter. We are in petri dishes here. And when you grow more quantity of extract, and that you get a very nice inhibition of those cancerous cells. And
What exactly, so when you say inhibition of cancer cells, what does that mean? Does that mean they're getting smaller? What is actually happening on
so
this
it is a
line? Is it
number. It is a number of cells. So those
okay.
cancerous cells are dying. And the beauty of those extracts is that healthy cells are left alone. And so I told you at the beginning, as a lawyer, it was absolutely not my field, but I felt those discoveries were so important that I decided to come here in the States and create this non-for-profit organization to confirm my father's work and be able to take it even further if I could. So I started this non-for-profit organization, 501c3, called the Beljanski Foundation. We study, we share the knowledge about effective non-toxic natural answers to disease, and we see also how they can work on and in synergy with traditional Western medicine, because we understand that people may want to add something, but when you have cancer, you are not going, very few people choose to go conventional medicine all the way. So it's very important to confirm that those plant extracts can actually be taken together with chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And that's something we have been able to do along the years by collaborating with a number of academic institutions here in the States and further document the potential of those natural compounds and their anti-cancer properties. So everything is getting published with peer-reviewed publications. Everything is available on the website of the foundation, which is beljanski.org. beljanski.org.
Amazing. And can you go to the previous slide for me real fast?
Yeah, sure.
For the people that are listening and not being able to see Sylvie's screen, basically it's showing that the Rauwolfia and then the Pereira is basically, the line is going down, and the more you increase the amount of milligrams in that particular product is decreasing the amount of cancer cells. Anything you would add to that, Sylvie?
Yeah, and this is specific to cancerous cells. There is no toxicity to healthy cells, which is a big difference with pharmaceutical drugs, actually.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to show?
Yes, we were speaking today about inflammation, and I would like to share with you the research which has been conducted with BPH. BPH is a benign prostate hyperplasia, and that's swelling of the prostate, and that's a huge problem. Affects almost every man after 50, and it's an inflammation. It's a chronic inflammation of the prostate. And because tissues are inflamed, it's more difficult to go to the bathroom. So they have to run several times a day or at night. The bathrooms, they do not sleep well. Their wife do not sleep well. Everybody is grumpy. It's a big problem. And eventually it can lead to prostate cancer, which is also very significant cancer when it comes to men's deaths and number of cancer developed by men. So we have done some research program which was conducted with Columbia University and then Nanjing University using the Pereira and also the Rauwolfia Vomitoria. And that led to a number of papers explaining the mechanism of action by which both of those extracts are reducing inflammation. It's one thing to see it, it's another thing, especially for researchers, to understand how it is doing it. And we see that there are actually two main pathways for those extracts to reduce inflammation. One is by regulating NF-kappa B, which is a centrum for regulation for inflammation in the entire body. So taking the extracts will actually help with reducing inflammation everywhere, and by regulating 5-alpha reductase. 5-alpha reductase is specific to prostate inflammation. NF-kappa B is not specific to prostate. NF-kappa B is for the entire body, chronic inflammation in the entire body. 5-alpha reductase is specific to prostate inflammation because it is the hormone which is going to transform testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, and dihydrotestosterone induces the inflammation of the prostate. That's why after 50, men have less testosterone and more dihydrotestosterone. And that's why they have less aggressivity, power, strength, everything that comes with testosterone, and more swelling of the prostate. So this little Pereira is able to inhibit that process, and also Rauwolfia vomitoria. Both are doing those two things.
So what I'm understanding is the Rauwolfia is decreasing the inflammation in the prostate, which therefore decreases potentially the likelihood of cancer.
Yes, both extracts actually are doing that. Both extracts are inducing apoptosis, which is the death of cancerous cells, and both extracts have been researched for their mechanism of action, which are now well documented.
That's amazing.
And now,
That's really
yes, especially when you think that there is no toxicity and no side effect associated with those extracts. For those who can see the screen, I have a treat for you. I'm going to show you prostate from rats. I'm sure our audience is not used to see prostate.
If you're listening on the podcast, you're really missing out on this beautiful scene right here of these benign cancer cells. These are very attractive things we're looking at right here.
So in line A, you have the control normal prostate. I mean, it's control group normal prostate of rats. In line B, you have the BPH, meaning those rats we have induced inflammation and they have enlarged prostate. So that you see the enlarged prostate. After that, you see the third line is those prostates have been, the rats, we enlarge their prostate by inflammation. Then we give them the drug, classic drug called finasteride, and we can see the effect of finasteride. We can see that indeed there is a nice reduction of the size of the prostate with finasteride. Then we gave the power extract, and then we gave the Rauwolfia extract. And what we see when you look at the stats is that basically the finasteride and the power extracts are both doing a very good job at meeting the size of the prostate, and it doesn't have any of the side effects that come with finasteride. So those side effects, which, I Googled, range from impotence, loss of an interest in sex, well, having an orgasm, abnormal ejaculation, swelling of your hands and feet, swelling of tenderness of your breast, dizziness, weakness, feeling like you might pass out, headache, runny nose, and skin rash. So that's according to Google's side effects of finasteride. So it's not something to take lightly. And I believe if I was a man, if I had the choice between something like that and something natural, which is well documented to be effective, I would definitely try something effective before taking a drug with the side effects.
Are you able to take both at the same time? This finasteride and the other two?
Absolutely, you can, and that could allow you to reduce the amount of finasteride.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between this and chemotherapy? Do people use this instead of chemotherapy for prostate cancer, or?
Yes, today I focused on inflammation. So
Okay,
my
got it.
focus was not on cancer, but indeed,
Oh.
because they are linked, those plant extracts also have shown to have very good activity against different kind of cancer, including prostate cancer, including advanced prostate cancers that do not respond to hormonal treatment. And I'm glad that you asked, actually, because my next slide is for inflammation of the pancreas. In always a mice model, we induced inflammation of the pancreas by giving alcohol to those mice. And you can see that the pancreas goes into pieces. It completely explodes under the effect of alcohol. And when you give Rauwolfia or when you give Pereira, and here we gave those animals 10 milligram per kilo. So this is really, it's not in petri dish here. It's really animals which have been studied. You can see that the pancreas is actually stirring itself and going back to a normal aspect. And we have done, when it comes to pancreatic cancer, we have done the studies all the way to cancer, and we have publications both with Pereira and Rauwolfia showing that those compounds can work alone and also in synergy with chemotherapy. Here it was the gemcitabine, which is the gold standard, which was used for those studies.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. I'm very proud of this research.
Yeah, that's a lot of information. That's really good. What are some other additional steps should be considered by anyone looking to lower their inflammation after everything we talked about?
So there is other products that my father also developed that can help with boosting the immune system. For example, his RNA fragments, excellent way to support the production of leukocytes, which are the blood cells that are in charge of the immune system, and therefore help the platelets store the serotonin and help fight depression. So a lot of good things come along with those RNA fragments. He also developed a golden extract of ginkgo biloba, which help regulate the ribonuclease, which are some specific enzymes of the liver. That's what I would say can help with the products that we have been researching at the Beljanski Foundation. My father developed some other products beyond Pereira and Rauwolfia Vomitoria that can help support the immunity. More specifically, he has a product for the liver called the golden extract of ginkgo biloba, which has been shown to regulate the enzymes of the liver. And then there are little RNA fragments which are really specific of the immunity because they support the bone marrow and all the production of the cells that are supposed to be created within the bone marrow, which includes the leukocytes and the cells. But for everybody, I would say, who wants just to take some easy steps, lifestyle steps to reduce inflammation. I would say the best is a very simple elimination diet. Avoid gluten-containing grains like wheat, barley, rye, spelt. Reduce the amount, of course, of sugar. The cancer cells love sugar. They use sugar instead of oxygen to grow. Especially American diet is full of high corn syrup. Absolutely number one enemy to avoid. Avoid all fast food, synthetic dye in the food, the blue birthday cake. It's not natural. Avoid all the industrial oils, seed oils. They often are rancid, poor quality ratio of omega-3, and avoid conventional dairy because also that's full of hormones, pesticides, and things that is given to those poor animals. So that
Are you telling me? Are you telling me I can't eat cake, cookies, or Taco Bell? You're hurting my heart right now.
I started to tell you that 80% of Americans are suffering from some kind of chronic inflammation. Why do you think we achieve such a big high number? It has a lot to do with the American lifestyle, which includes all those things which used to be good. But the wheat that is cultivated today is not what our great grandparents were growing. The cows are not raised like our great grandparents were growing their cows, and the milk is not the same. And then all the industrial food did not exist at all just a century ago. A century ago, everybody was eating organic even without thinking of it. There are also those painkillers, anti-inflammatory products that Advil, Tylenol, ibuprofen, all those things actually on the long term, they destroy the liver, and they're absolutely terrible on the long term for your body. So that's really something you should try to reduce to the minimum, and instead try to develop emotional balance, physical fitness, spiritual connection, gratefulness. All those things are actually very helpful to reduce inflammation. I strongly believe that negative emotions increase inflammation in the body.
That's interesting.
I
Yeah.
I would like to end by sharing a little story about a little known territory called Karelia, because I think that's very significant for people about what we live and what is happening to us. Karelia was, I should say, a small territory between Finland and Russia. And at the end of World War II, Karelia was split between those two countries, Russia and Finland. And 60 years after the split, there was a study that was done called the Karelia Project. And what they found is that on the Finnish side, the population had developed a lot of celiac disease and a lot of inflammation-related disease like diabetic, also a lot of diabetic and a lot of celiac disease, and also asthma. And on the Russian side, it was like 6 times less of those diseases, even though 60 years later it was the same population. So the researchers came up with two explanations. One is saying it's because the industrial process that took place in Finland had led to more pollution, and the pollution has led to increase of the immune disease. And the other researcher said it's not enough diversity in the food, in the environment, create a loss of possibilities of the microbiome, and this loss of diversity of the microbiome leads to immune disease. My little point of view is that when you have a mismatch between our genes and the environment in which we compare to our ancestors, something goes havoc and it's the body reacts with chronic inflammation to express how unhappy it is.
That's really interesting. That's a really interesting story. Yeah, that's really interesting. Sylvie, thank you so much for coming on today. Please tell the audience how to find more about you and how to find more about the Beljanski Foundation.
Yeah, sure. The Beljanski Foundation, its website is beljanski.org. And you can read my book, Winning the War on Cancer, The Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure. And we have events and conferences on a regular basis where we speak about all those topics, and we try to keep you informed of the new developments and the new research projects that we are funding. We are currently working on a breast cancer stem cells project with Kansas University Medical Center. So stay tuned because we will continue to communicate about that.
Well, that's awesome. Sylvie, thank you for enlightening us on all the things about inflammation. I definitely learned a lot, and I hope everyone else did too that's still listening. So this is the Beljanski Cancer Talk Show, and thank you for listening, guys.